We're ready.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Welcome to the April meeting of the Finance Committee. First matter on the agenda, I see Janice up in Buffalo. Thank you. I see Al. So we have a quorum. First up is the adoption of the meeting minutes from the March meeting of Finance. Can I please get a motion to approve those meeting minutes? I know they were distributed in the packet. I forget exactly what tab they were, but so well, Janice, thank you very much for the second. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no abstention, so that motion carries. We have two matters for finance today. First up is the Olean Public Library offering, and that's going to be presented by Steve. It's about I remember, $7.5 million offering, or $8 million, somewhere around there. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. The Finance Committee is being asked to recommend to the full board the adoption of documents for 31-year tax-exempt and/or taxable fixed and/or variable not to exceed $7.9 million for the Olean Public Library. The library is a new DASNY client and was added to the DASNY statute in 2023. The library is a school district library chartered by the Board of Regents of the State of New York, serving approximately 15,000 residents of the Olean City School District in Cattaraugus County. Bond proceeds will be used to construct additions, alterations, and improvements to the library building. Voters approved the $7.9 million referendum on June 26, 2025. Funding for the library comes from real property tax revenues levied and collected by the school district each September. The school district forwards 100% of the library's annual tax levy collectible in November of each year. Any changes to the tax levy are submitted to the voters for approval. Once approved by the voters, the library's tax levy is considered an annual appropriation. If the library subsequently requests an increase and the voters defeat that request, then the appropriation reverts to the amount last approved by the voters. The bonds are expected to be rated A2 or better by Moody's. It's anticipated that the bonds will be issued as a single series of tax-exempt bonds. Security will include a pledge of revenues and a lockbox to intercept the collection of tax revenues for priority payment of debt service on the bonds. The school district will send all tax receipts due to the library directly to the trustee. A portion of the library's tax receipts will be set aside by the trustee to fund the debt service fund, and the remaining balance will then be transferred to the library to be used for its operations. Bond insurance, although not required, may be utilized if economically advantageous. In summary, the library has a predictable revenue stream, and the debt service fund will be funded through the lockbox mechanism ahead of bondholder payments. Shannon Wagner of Hodgson Russ and Natalia Pearson-Ferrer of Holly and Pearson-Ferrer, co-bond counsel, will provide an overview of the documents at the full board meeting. Therefore, staff requests the Finance Committee to recommend the adoption of documents for a bond issue amount not to exceed $7.9 million on behalf of Olean Public Library. Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Steve. Any questions or concerns? I'd like to welcome Olean to the DASNY family. Certainly excited to have them. Can I get any comments or concerns from any of the board members? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve, well, not to approve, to recommend approval of this offering at the board meeting that'll happen in a few minutes.
So moved.
Thank you very much, Al. Second by Janice up there in Buffalo. Thank you, Janice. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, no abstentions. So that motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is the Wagner College offering the amount of $35 billion, which is them to purchase the campus of St. John's University in Staten Island, and he's going to present that proposal. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. The Finance Committee is being asked to recommend to the full board a single approval transaction for a financing in an amount not to exceed $35 million, with a term not to exceed 6 years on behalf of Wagner College. Proceeds of the proposed issuance will be used to finance the costs associated with the acquisition of the former St. John's University Staten Island campus. The bonds are expected to be sold through a private placement and will be structured as interest only for 5 years with a bullet maturity in 2031. The bonds are expected to be repaid in full upon maturity through the sale of non-core assets. As I'll discuss in more detail, this is a short-term financing designed to support Wagner's broader strategic plan. A little bit of recent history. Wagner College is an existing DASNY client, last issuing bonds through DASNY in 2022. The 2022 bonds were publicly offered with an investment grade rating of BBB- from Fitch. Since that time, Wagner has experienced a decline in operating performance, which resulted in a downgrade of the college's rating from BBB- to BB by Fitch in February of 2025. As is laid out in the transaction report, the college has experienced operating deficits in recent years, which grew to $16.6 million in fiscal year 2025. While total enrollment is under 2,000 students, operating revenues have been somewhat constrained over the last 5 years as the college increased financial aid to maintain enrollment levels. And as a result, unrestricted net assets have deteriorated over the last 5 years, declining to negative $17.5 million at fiscal year end 2025. The college reported cash investments totaling $120.5 million as of fiscal year end 2025, but elevated endowment draws to fund operating deficits have eroded some of that balance sheet liquidity. In July of 2024, Wagner appointed a new president. The new senior leadership team is in the early stages of a 6-year strategic plan to realign and modernize its programming to achieve operational sustainability by fiscal year 2031. Management plans to boost enrollment over a 6-year period by repositioning the college to serve more relevant majors, reducing underperforming majors, and adding 3 to 4 new majors every year in competitive fields over the next 6 years. The acquisition of the St. John's campus, which is located directly adjacent to Wagner's main campus, directly supports Wagner's 6-year plan and addresses 2 core issues that have impeded growth: an aging facility and space constraints. The current campus is outdated, with the newest building being roughly 40 years old. And the acquisition of the St. John's campus provides Wagner with an opportunity to avoid costs associated with its aging facility by moving certain programs to updated facilities on the St. John's campus. Certain sections of the main campus will be taken offline following the acquisition, allowing the college to avoid maintenance and renovation costs associated with these facilities that are expected to be well in excess of the cost to acquire the St. John's campus. In addition, space constraints on the college's current campus have hindered its ability to accommodate larger class sizes and to grow enrollment. The St. John's facility can accommodate much larger class sizes and will provide additional space for new programs in the future. As I mentioned earlier, the 2026 bonds will be sold through a private placement. The bonds will be structured as interest only with a 5-year term with a bullet maturity in 2031. Upon final maturity, Wagner intends to pay off the bonds in full using proceeds from the sale of an undeveloped parcel of land that's owned by the college. This parcel of land, which is not core to Wagner's operations and mission, is expected to be sold during the 5-year period that the bonds are outstanding. 2026 bonds will be purchased by 2 qualified institutional buyers, Invesco and Alliance Bernstein, who are also holders of the Series 2022 bonds. The security for the bonds, as required by the purchasers, is expected to include a pledge of revenues, mortgages on property, and a debt service reserve fund. Just to summarize, financing the acquisition of the St. John's campus and subsequent payoff after 5 years will provide Wagner with the physical space necessary for the college to work toward its strategic turnaround goals. The acquisition addresses the college's aging infrastructure and capacity challenges at a cost less than renovating its existing facility. The updated facilities and larger teaching spaces are expected to help drive demand and accommodate new programs as the college implements the 6-year plan. And the financing structure, with a payoff in 5 years through the sale of non-core assets, leaves the college with no additional debt after 2031 and assists Wagner in moving toward long-term operational sustainability. The last thing I wanted to point out is through feedback from the college and through some of the public comments that we've received through the TEFRA hearing or the TEFRA process, positive comments have been received from the surrounding community in support of Wagner purchasing the St. John's campus and continuing its use as a college campus. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks very much, Dave. And that was going to be one of my questions about what does the community actually think, and so thank you for getting ahead of that one. Let's turn it to my committee members, Janice or Al. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. None here.
I think it's a pretty unique and well-constructed way to sort of solve or try to solve their issues. The side benefit, I guess, it also helps St. John's. Maybe they'll get to the Final Four next year.
Get rid of Connecticut. That's what we need to do. Get rid of Connecticut.
So I think it's, it plays well for both of the institutions, and it's an attempt, and you have big boys, right? You have Invesco and you have Alliance, and they know what they're doing. So I think Portia and the team has done a nice job here on trying to help Wagner along and keep the institution going. I only had one question. These other properties that eventually are going to be used to sort of pay off the bond, are they located close to the facility, or are they like spread out around Staten Island? How does that? Do we not know?
Yeah.
Not that it matters. I'm just curious.
But the property that they plan to sell is vacant land that's located near the university. It's directly connected to the university.
And the St. John's campus is very close, like almost next door.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Certainly. I was going to go to my members. Yes.
And this is more for my edification as well. In these type of transactions, is there an appraisal that's done on the property, for the value of the property? I didn't hear that.
I always ask that same question, and sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't.
Okay,
I don't know in this particular case. I was real curious about the other properties, what they were appraised at, but I didn't
Right.
really
right.
dive into that.
It may not be an
Thank you,
appraisal,
Ms.
it could be just a BOV, a broker's opinion.
So there are appraisals on all of the properties, and the property that they're planning to sell is valued in excess of the bonds. So the property that will be sold off in its current state is valued in excess of what they'll need to pay off the bonds.
It's gonna take some time to, whatever they're trying to do with the rezone. That takes some time. So sort of like more like a gap financing to keep them afloat. But yes, it's always floating around there, Liz.
Okay,
Thank you for the.
thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none, can I get a motion to recommend approval at the board meeting?
So move.
Second.
Al, all in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no abstentions, that motion carries. Portia, you can correct me, but unless anybody else has any other business before finance or any questions or concerns, I'm gonna look for a motion to adjourn.
We're good to go, Jerry.
Well, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no abstention. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair. I'm turning it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, Nancy, let me know when we're